Good morning. I hope everybody is doing well. This is the first in a new series, My Favorite Conductors. I'll focus on vinyl recordings, what did you expect? But I'll also recommend fantastic recordings performers you can stream or collect on CD. There should be quite a few videos in the series. I have a lot of favorite conductors. Many of you know my love of Herbert von Karajan. I recently posted a video focusing on him, so he won't be in this series. Others must like him too because the video, while not exactly viral, has received lots of views for classical vinyl video. My love and deep respect for Karajan is for his musicianship, his conducting prowess, his orchestral training, and his unbending standards. Not so much for him as a private citizen, and definitely not for his amateur hour engineering. I'm already planning the next two videos in the series, Sir John Barbaroli and Fritz Reiner. But we begin with the great, charismatic, contentious Hungarian-British conducting giant Sir Georg Solti. Rather than a Wikipedia or ChatGPT cut and paste, I'll give you a little history and also a little gossip. I hope you don't mind. With a couple of the Solti stories, we may get an off-color word or two. I hope you're not easily offended. Unlike Karajan, inextricably linked to Deutsche Grammophon, Barbaroli, Reiner, and Solti were blessed by great producers, engineers, and record companies. It shows in their catalogs. Barbaroli with EMI, Reiner with RCA at its very best, and Solti lifelong with Decca. All three, at least in parts of their histories, may be considered audiophile companies. And with this history with Decca, Solti recorded over 250 recordings. So a brief background about Sir George. Pronounced Sir Georg, but I'll call it Sir George from now on. Sir Georg Solti, born Georgi Stern, was a Hungarian-born orchestral and operatic conductor. He was born on October 21, 1912, and passed away on September 5, 1997. And he's widely regarded as one of the leading conductors of the 20th century. He was also equally at home in the opera house as he was on the concert stage. He served as the music director of the Chicago Symphony from 1969 to 91, and was also associated with the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. He was their music director, and also with the London Symphony, where he was primarily a guest conductor, and from 79 to 83, only 4 years, with the London Philharmonic Orchestra. I've got some stories about that partnership. Like all conductors among musicians, Solti had his fans and detractors. I'll start with a nice story. This is about how Solti rehearses, and from my experience, just how players like it. Constantly stopping and starting and being lectured to is an anathema for most players. When Solti was at his peak in London in the late 70s, early 80s, I was attending college at Trinity College of Music. We'd get free tickets every day for concerts and operas, which happened in London daily. So I saw lots. Many with Solti, with both his Chicago Symphony on tour and his London Philharmonic. But before I left for England from my home in Montreal, I studied with a very special teacher. Her husband played viola in the Israel Philharmonic. Solti had a close connection with the orchestra, and Paul loved Solti. Solti's technique was to play through the work in question, take notes while playing, then spend a few minutes on difficult parts, polish them up, then play through again. Done. Heaven for most musicians. I'll link below to two excellent videos with Solti rehearsing, so you'll get a feeling of the intensity of his music making. When he was younger, however, he was tasked with training orchestras such as the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. It was in pretty rough shape when he took over in 1961, and like he did with the London Philharmonic years later, fired a good number of players. Never a fun time front of house or back of house. The players that were left hated Solti for a while until standards improved. In the meantime, they vandalized his car, and other than his famous nickname, the Screaming Skull, named him the Prussian Bastard. Of course, he was Hungarian, not Prussian. I never had the pleasure of playing for Solti, but my conducting professor at Trinity was the great Bernard Keefe. Mr. Keefe was Solti's assistant at Covent Garden. He was too much of a gentleman to tell tales out of school, but I did feel the animus every time I discussed Solti with him. Among other things, Bernard called Solti, quote, a speed merchant, unquote. Interestingly, the animus went both ways, as Solti only gave one line in his autobiography about Bernard. And Bernard was a very important part of the music team at Covent Garden. Let's say they were both very strong personalities. There are many stories from London musicians, also Chicago if you read Donald Peck's autobiography. Peck was the principal flute under Rainer Solti and Barenboim. I'll link it below. It's a great book. But there is no doubt the Chicago relationship served the conductor and orchestra very well. Interestingly, Solti adopted Britain and took citizenship, the only way he could receive a knighthood, and didn't like living in Chicago, preferring his house in Primrose Hill, which sold recently for £17 million. And during his time in Chicago, he lived in the Drake Hotel. The great news is for you that there have been few conductors that released recordings through their life with different orchestras that maintain such a high level of performance and blessed with lifelong great Decca sound. So let's get to the fun, unscripted music part. So let's begin with the digital recommendations. You can do this on streaming, but I have some of these on compact disc, and they are absolutely wonderful. Like I mentioned earlier, most things that Solti did, any composer, Schubert, Beethoven, Mozart, Haydn, to wonderful Beethoven cycles with Chicago Symphony and Brahms cycles with the Chicago Symphony, early Schubert with the Israel Philharmonic, and then of course all his Richard Strauss with the Chicago Symphony, Bartók with the London Symphony, and of course all those remakes with the Chicago Symphony later on with Decca Digital. They're all, the standards are incredibly high. So if you have these already, they're wonderful. But if you don't have a vinyl copy that you prefer, these will do on digital. They're very, very good recordings. The first thing I would recommend is a couple of operas. He's an incredible opera conductor. And I think his best opera recording is Le Nozze di Figaro. Again, these are all on Decca. And this is a box set with the London Philharmonic Orchestra, who did this a lot in the pit at Glyndebourne in the summer. And it's just a magnificent recording. Great cast, no weaknesses in the cast, beautiful phrasing, beautiful tempos, and the orchestra just sounds remarkably good. And a wonderful recording. So that's my first Marriage of Figaro. I know there's other ones, Giulini and great ones, and on vinyl, but that's my preferred Marriage of Figaro. There's his famous Mahler 8th Symphony recorded with the Chicago Symphony in the Sophian Saal in Vienna. Magnificent recording. Showed the Chicago Symphony to be, as he called them, the world's greatest orchestra. But it is a wonderful recording. A friend of mine, Stuart, an oboe player in London, when we lived there as students, he had a car. I didn't have a car. I was a poor Canadian student. And he had a MGB GT, beautiful British Racing Green. And we'd get the Mahler 8 tape and throw it in with the sunroof down and just blast around London playing this music as loud as we could. What fun when you're young. But it's a fantastic Mahler 8, highly recommended. Then, of course, there's his famous Ring Cycle, which if you can get it on vinyl, it's not that difficult. Either London or Decca. I prefer Decca's. I know they're the same pressing, they're the same time of pressing. It's just the label difference. But I don't know. I just prefer the Decca. Take that for what you will. But the Ring, all four operas are just amazing. Many people consider them the first recommendation. As far as the recording is concerned, they are. Have a look at the video that I link below with his rehearsals, and you'll see the intensity of the music making and the singing. It's remarkable. But I have it on Esoteric, the remastering. Now it's very expensive. You can't get it. It's about $2,000 on eBay. But it's a wonderful, wonderful digital remastering of the Ring. It has been remastered on vinyl. I'm not sure with digital. I'm not sure how successful it's been. But if there's plenty of the originals pressings around, London or Decca. But you can get that if you can get that Esoteric, or even the standard CD is very, very good of the Ring. Two Elgar recordings, his first symphony and his second symphony. Now, I love Elgar, he's a great composer, but anytime an American or a foreigner does Elgar in London, the Brits go nuts. They love it. It's like catnip for Brit reviewers. Anyway, he did do a fantastic job with the London Philharmonic. With Elgar 1 and 2. And you can get those. There's also his Elgar's Overture in the South, which is my favorite Elgar piece, also called Alassio. And he does a fantastic job with the London Philharmonic. I should give you one quick story of the London Philharmonic. This is after the firings and the orchestra settled down a little bit. They weren't happy, but they were getting on. And Solti was still madly in love with the Chicago Symphony. And the city had kind of taken to Solti and the orchestra. And he was touring the world with them and making great recordings, like the Mahler 8 and others. And he was conducting, I'm not sure the piece was conducting with the London Philharmonic, but it was all the time, we do it this way in Chicago. We do it that way in Chicago. The Chicago Symphony plays it this way. Oh my goodness, the Chicago Symphony played it 3 weeks ago this way. Finally, Nick Bush, who is the principal horn, you can see him on the video that I've linked, stood up as the chairman of the orchestra, said, Maestro, this is London, not Chicago. It finally had enough. Anyway, all the histrionics aside, it's a great Elgar 1 and 2. Another couple of operas that you should get on digital, or if you can get them on vinyl, it's great. The Salome and the Electra, the Richard Strauss operas, are fantastic on vinyl, but they're very good on digital as well. His De Rosenkavalier, I'm not sure if that was a digital recording, with Vienna Forces and Regine Crespin and other people. It's a fantastic Rosenkavalier. The only reason I don't have it on vinyl is because I have the Karajan EMI with Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, which I think is the best. But his De Rosenkavalier with the famous silver cover, it's lovely. And there are two modern analog recordings of modern works that I think you can take to the bank. The first one is Le Sacre, and I'm looking for that on vinyl, a Decca with Chicago Symphony, the Stravinsky Le Sacre du Printemps. It's magnificent. It's one of the top 3 or 4 ever recorded. As I said before, I'm not a collector, so I just choose the first or second best performance I can, recording it by that. But you could have Le Sacre as your first choice with the Chicago Symphony on Decca. It's fantastic. And the other one I would recommend, you can get this on CD, but if you can get the vinyl, and I'm also looking for this as well, is Bartók's Concerto for Orchestra. Now, Solti was a student of Bartók's in Budapest, along with Reiner and Dorati and Frickjoy, all the great Hungarian conductors studied with Bartók. And it's wonderful, his Concerto for Orchestra. Now, this is the original on Decca with the London Symphony. It's magnificent on vinyl. And again, I'm looking for it, an original. I think it's being reissued on Speaker's Corner, but it's fantastic either way. But the vinyl is famous. Now, he did remake it with Chicago Symphony, like he did a lot of stuff, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the vinyl in a second. It's not as good. The recording is digital. It's very good if you like the CD, and it sounds good. It's very effective, but it doesn't have the same kind of hysteria that the LSO bring to it. I guess with young Solti yelling at them to get them to play beautifully in Kingsway Hall. And they're the CDs I would recommend if you can get them, or streaming. They're all wonderful. And I prefer CDs to my streaming. I've got fantastic streaming setup. I've also got an incredibly good CD player by MBL, the MBL N31. That's what it's called, the N31 CD DAC, and it's exquisite. I'll put a picture up and show you it. It's beautiful. But my preference, as you know, is for vinyl. So now what I'm going to do is going to go through the vinyl section and tell you why I like them and why you should get them. Most of these were purchased on Discogs. They're not expensive. Decas have come down quite a bit in price. And these are mostly ED3s, third pressings. They're very, very good. Again, if you have these on London, they're supposed to be exactly the same. I'll leave that up to you. And but I do love the Decas, and I do search them out. This is Romantic Russia, with music by Borodin, Glinka, and Mussorgsky. No Sir at the Time, No Knighthood. This is the LSO Kingsway Hall. Absolutely beautiful. Again, a third pressing. Highly recommended. Now, his Mahler cycle, the early cycle with Decca, we did all with Chicago Symphony, and some of those are better, like the 8th, etc. His LSO second and LSO third are not good. The Mahler one is outstanding, beautifully recorded, beautifully played, lots of energy, fresh outlook. The playing is fantastic. Again, I'm assuming it's Kingsway Hall with the whole team. If it's something different, I'll put it up on the screen. Again, third pressing. He did his fourth with the Concertgebouw, his early set. And of course, his later ones on vinyl. I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay, so that's a great buy. I think this was $35, $40. I just did a whole video on this, on music for strings, percussion, and Celeste. This is the Decca version. I've got it on London as well. It's wonderful. Either way, third pressing. But both pieces are superb performances. The Miraculous Mandarin and Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celeste. If you want to see more about the Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celeste, check out the video. I'll link it below. I needed a good Bruckner 7. There aren't that many on vinyl that kind of fit my taste. I got this one sent from overseas. Took a long time to get here, but it wasn't that expensive, $40, plus, of course, the shipping. It's got a very nice performance of the Wagner Siegfried Idyll, but it's a purple label, the purple label Decca, and I guess that's wideband, so an early one. It's a lovely sound in the Sophiensaal in Vienna, and the Vienna Philharmonic play it very beautifully. It's not a challenging piece. It's quite easy to play Bruckner 7, but of course you need the tone, and the Vienna Philharmonic can play it in their sleep. But the tone of that orchestra is gorgeous, and Solti doesn't get in the way. It's a very stately, magisterial performance, and the orchestra sounds wonderful. And of course the sound, that's exceptional. This is the Mahler 5 to end all Mahler 5s. And this is because it's got Decca sound, the Chicago Symphony on top form, with rehearses playing the principal trumpet part, Dale Clevenger on horn, all the great brass section, and they were really playing well, and it sounds spectacular. One of the things that happened in this is at the end of the finale, I'll put the music up. As the horns come in, I think it's only double F, but you'll see on the score. And you can see the engineers dive for the for the sliders, because the horns are going to come in and blast the hell out of the recording. So you can actually feel the whole energy level go down, then they go back up again. But it doesn't ruin the recording. It's a fantastic recording. It also has Yvonne Minton singing songs from Das Knaben und Wunderhorn, which is a spectacular coupling. Very nice. Another Decca beauty. I needed a good Mahler 6. And until the original source, DG, the Emil Berliner studio, get a hold of the best performance of Mahler 6, which is Karajan. I've never heard anything like it. The playing is just spectacular. If people want to argue with you about it, just go to the Alma theme, the second subject of the first movement, and listen to Berliner Philharmonic violins. That's all I have to tell you about that. It's just spectacular. Unfortunately, it's the recording is not good, of course. Karajan's been fiddling around with it as usual. So this is not quite as well played. It's very, very fine. This is early Chicago Symphony, early Solti with Decca. It's very, very good. But the recording is lovely, lovely. Again, it's another one of the purple labels. This is the third pressing now. It's very good. Yvonne Minton, who's superb. This is Lieder eines fahrenden, I'll try that again. Lieder eines fahrenden Gesellen. And finally, my go-to Mahler 9. I think, along with Das Lied von der Erde, the greatest works that Mahler ever composed. Just a spectacular piece of music, one of the greatest symphonies ever written. And this is his earlier one, of course, with the LSO, analog. And it doesn't get a lot of press. It's a fantastic recording. The recording is just so lifelike and powerful. The timpani on this is just remarkable. And the tempos are beautiful. The scherzo, the burlesque is wonderfully played. The orchestral playing is superb. I mean, it's so musical. The sound of the LSO is wonderful. His ninth remake with Chicago was just paled in comparison. This is wonderful. Another one, narrow band, but the purple label. So look, that's it for my vinyl selection. Again, with Solti, you're lucky with just about anything. I mean, his Haydn with the London Philharmonic, his Schubert with the Israel Philharmonic, He did recordings with, he was actually music director of the Orchestra Paris, but some of his recordings are not the very best. But anything you get with Chicago, London, Israel, you're liable, and of course Vienna, you're liable to get a fantastic performance and great sound. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have some more videos soon. Please come back. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.